I stood in the hallway of Riverside Memorial Hospital, staring at my phone screen. The text from my brother Marcus was still there, glowing against the sterile white walls. "Mom's awake. Asking for you." My hands were shaking, but not from fear of what I'd find in room 407. I was shaking because I had to tell my mother, while she lay dying from pancreatic cancer, that her own son had stolen my future. I pushed open the door. Mom was propped up against 3 pillows, her silver hair thin against her scalp. She'd always been the picture of strength, a woman who'd worked 2 jobs to put me and Marcus through school after Dad died. Now she looked impossibly small. "Maya," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Come here, baby." I sat in the chair beside her bed, taking her hand. It felt like paper in mine. "Where's Marcus?" she asked. That was the question, wasn't it? Where was my brother when our mother was asking for him? The answer made my throat tight. "He's not coming today, Mom." Her eyes searched my face. Even weak, even medicated, she could read me like she always had. "Something's wrong," she said. It wasn't a question. I'd promised myself I wouldn't do this. The oncologist had said she had maybe 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we were lucky. This wasn't the time to burden her with the truth about what Marcus had done. But as I sat there, holding her hand, I realized I'd never been good at lying to my mother. "Mom, I need to tell you something." She squeezed my hand. "Tell me." I took a breath. "You know the restaurant space on Maple Street? The one you've been holding on to?" "Of course. Your father found that property." Her eyes grew distant. "We were going to open our own place there. After he died, I couldn't sell it. Kept thinking maybe someday. You told me I could have it. For the community kitchen. I'd spent 5 years working toward this dream. After getting my culinary degree, I'd worked in high-end restaurants across Chicago, saving every penny. But what I really wanted was to create something that mattered. A kitchen that would provide job training for people re-entering society after incarceration. Free cooking classes for underprivileged kids. A place that fed people who needed feeding. Mom had been so proud when I told her about the plan. Last Christmas, when she'd first gotten sick, she'd held my face in her hands and said, "That property is yours, Maya. Build your dream there." "I remember," Mom said now. "Have you started the permits?" I tried. My voice cracked. "Mom, the property's gone." Her expression didn't change immediately. She just kept looking at me, processing. "Gone how?" "Marcus sold it 3 months ago." I watched the words land. Watched my mother's face shift from confusion to disbelief to something harder. "That's not possible. The property's in a trust. He can't sell it without my signature. He had power of attorney. You signed it over when you got sick, remember? So he could handle your medical bills, your finances." Understanding dawned in her eyes. With it came a pain that had nothing to do with the cancer eating away at her pancreas. "How much?" she whispered. $430,000. The number hung in the air between us. That property had been in our family for 23 years. My father had bought it when Maple Street was still rough, before the neighborhood gentrified. He'd had vision. He'd seen what it could become. "Marcus needed it," I continued, my voice hollow. "That's what he told me when I found out. He'd made some bad investments. Owed people money. Dangerous people," he said. "He promised he'd pay me back, buy me another property. He said you'd understand." "When did you find out?" 2 weeks ago. I went to the city planning office to submit my blueprints. They told me the property had already been sold. New owners planning to put in luxury condos. I'd driven straight to Marcus's house in Oak Park, the house he'd bought 2 years ago when his tech startup finally took off. The house with the 3-car garage and the infinity pool. His wife Vanessa had answered the door in yoga pants that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Marcus isn't here," she'd said, not meeting my eyes. "I know what he did, Vanessa." She'd had the grace to look ashamed. "He said he'd fix it. He said the property was just sitting there anyway, and you could find another location. Just sitting there. As if my father's memory was just sitting there. As if my future was just sitting there." Now, in the hospital room, my mother closed her eyes. A tear slid down her temple into her hair. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to spend your last." "How much does he owe?" she interrupted. "What? How much does Marcus owe these dangerous people?" "He said 300,000. He used the rest for his business, to keep it afloat." Mom made a sound that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been so bitter. "His business." The one I took out a second mortgage for 2 years ago. I didn't know what to say. I'd been so focused on my own loss, I hadn't thought about the pattern. But now I saw it: Marcus always taking, always needing, always promising to pay it back. And my mother, who'd worked herself to the bone for her children, always giving. I should have seen it, she whispered. Your father saw it. Before he died, he told me Marcus would need boundaries. But he was my son, my baby boy. I thought if I just loved him enough, supported him enough. Mom, don't. I made you the responsible one. Put everything on your shoulders because Marcus was struggling to find himself. Her eyes opened, fixing on me with an intensity that seemed impossible given her condition. I failed you, Maya. I did. And now I'm dying, and you're left with nothing because I gave your brother the power to take it all. I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Hand me my phone." Mom, you should rest. My phone, Maya. I retrieved it from the bedside table. Her hands trembled as she unlocked it, scrolled through her contacts. I watched her press a name I didn't recognize. Dorothy Chen. Who are you calling? She held up one finger, waiting. Then her face shifted into something I'd rarely seen: the expression she'd worn when she'd marched into my high school to advocate for me when a teacher had failed me unfairly. The look that said someone had crossed a line. Dorothy? It's Caroline Williams. Yes, I know it's been a while. I'm in the hospital. Riverside Memorial, room 407. No, I'm not going to get better. Her voice was matter of fact. I need you to come see me. Today, if possible. And bring your notary seal. Because I need to make some changes. Important ones. She listened for a moment. Thank you. I'll see you soon. She ended the call and looked at me. Who's Dorothy Chen? I asked. Your father's estate lawyer. She handled the trust when he died. I should have kept in touch with her, but Marcus said I didn't need a lawyer for simple things. Said he could handle everything. Something in her voice made my chest tight. Mom, what are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. Protect my daughter. But the property's already sold. It's gone. The property's gone, she agreed. But there are other things. Things your brother doesn't know about. Before I could ask what she meant, there was a knock. A nurse poked her head in. Williams? Your son is here. My mother's expression didn't change. Tell him I'm sleeping. But he says, tell him I'm sleeping, and I'll call him when I'm ready to see him. The nurse hesitated, then nodded and withdrew. I stared at my mother. You don't want to see Marcus? Not yet. She closed her eyes again, suddenly looking exhausted. Right now, I need to rest. Dorothy will be here in a few hours. I need to be sharp for that. Mom, what's going on? She squeezed my hand. Do you trust me, baby? Of course. Then trust me now. Go home. Come back at 6. Everything will be ready by then. I wanted to argue, to demand answers. But my mother's eyes were already drifting shut, her breathing evening out into the shallow pattern that meant the pain medication was pulling her under. I left the room and nearly collided with Marcus in the hallway. He grabbed my arm. Why won't she see me? I looked at my brother. We had the same dark eyes, the same high cheekbones we'd inherited from our father. But where I'd gotten Dad's sense of responsibility, Marcus had gotten his charm. It had served him well right up until it hadn't. She's tired, Marcus. Did you tell her? His grip tightened. Did you tell her about the property? I pulled my arm free. You stole from me. You stole from our dying mother. What did you think would happen? I didn't steal anything. That property was just sitting there. It was mine. She promised it to me. And I'll get you another one. Better location. Better. With what money, Marcus? You're broke. You told me yourself you owed $300,000 to people who break kneecaps. He flinched. Keep your voice down. Why? Afraid someone will hear the truth about Marcus Williams, successful entrepreneur? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. How much of Mom's money have you burned through? The second mortgage wasn't enough? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The tech industry? The competition? I don't care about your excuses anymore. I pushed past him. Go home, Marcus. She'll call you when she's ready. Maya, wait. But I was already walking away. My vision blurred with tears. I refused to let fall until I reached my car. I didn't go home. I drove to Maple Street and parked across from the property that should have been mine. The building was old, brick, with good bones. The kind of place my father would have loved. The kind of place where I could have built something meaningful. A sign in the window announced, "Luxury condos coming soon, starting at $650,000. I sat there for an hour, mourning. Not just the property, but the dream. The future I'd worked so hard for. The promise my mother had made and my brother had stolen. 45. I drove back to the hospital. Room 407 was more crowded than before. My mother was sitting up, looking more alert than she had in days. Beside her bed stood an Asian woman in her 60s wearing a charcoal suit, Dorothy Chen, I presumed. And next to her, a younger woman with a tablet and a notary stamp. "Maya," Mom said. Perfect timing. "Dorothy, this is my daughter." Dorothy extended her hand. Her grip was firm, professional. "Your mother's told me a lot about you over the years. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." "Dorothy's been explaining some things to me," Mom said. "Things I should have asked about years ago." "What things?" Dorothy gestured to the chair. "Please, sit. Your mother has some decisions to make, and she wants you here for them." I sat, my heart pounding. Mom took a breath. "When your father died, he left everything in a trust. The house, his life insurance, the rental property on Maple Street, and some investments I'd honestly forgotten about. The trust was set up so I could access everything, but with protections." "What kind of protections?" "The kind that require 2 signatures for any major transactions over $50,000, Dorothy said. "Your father was a careful man. He loved your brother, but he knew Marcus had. Let's call them impulse control issues. So he structured the trust to protect against exactly this kind of situation." Understanding crept over me slowly. "So when Marcus sold the property, he committed fraud," Dorothy finished. "He forged your mother's signature on the sale documents. I've reviewed them. The signature doesn't match, and there's no record of the sale being properly authorized through the trust." I looked at my mother. "You knew. When I told you, you already knew he'd forged your signature." I suspected. "Your brother's been pressuring me to sign various documents for months." I kept putting him off, but I was so tired, so sick. I signed some things without reading them carefully, but never that property sale. That one, I would have remembered. "Which means," Dorothy continued, "the sale is invalid. We can force a reversal. The new owners will get their money back, and the property returns to the trust." Hope flared in my chest. "I can still build my kitchen?" "Not quite that simple," Dorothy said gently. "The legal process will take time. 6 months, maybe more. And there's the question of the money your brother already spent. The trust is liable for that debt, which means we'd have to sell the property anyway to pay back the buyers," Mom finished. "Unless we can come up with $430,000 another way." The hope flickered and died. "However," Dorothy said, "there are other assets. The rental income from the other properties your father bought has been accumulating. Your mother hasn't touched it in years. It's not enough to cover the whole debt, but it's a start. And there's the house, your mother's house. It's worth about $300,000 in the current market." "No," I said immediately. "That's Mom's house. Where we grew up. You can't sell it." "Maya," Mom said quietly, "I'm dying. What do I need with a house? But it's yours. It's Dad's. All our memories are in here." She tapped her chest. "Not in walls and a roof. Besides, I've been thinking, that house is too big for one person anyway. It was always meant for a family." She paused. "I'm leaving it to you in my will. But if we sell it now, we can use the money to fix your brother's mess and get the Maple Street property back." I shook my head. "I can't let you do that. It's not about letting me, baby. It's about making things right." She looked at Dorothy. "What are my options?" Dorothy pulled out a folder. "I've drafted 2 scenarios. In scenario 1, we pursue full legal action against Marcus for fraud. Criminal charges, civil suit, everything. We recover what we can and let the courts sort out the rest." "That would destroy him," I whispered. "Yes," Dorothy said simply. "It would. He'd likely face jail time, definitely lose his business, possibly his marriage. And you'd still lose the property because the legal fees would eat up any settlement." "And scenario 2? "Scenario 2 is a private resolution. We void the fraudulent sale, sell the family home, combine that with the trust's rental income, and pay back the condo developers. The property stays in the family trust. You get your community kitchen. And Marcus, She glanced at Mom. Gets nothing, Mom finished. The trust is currently set to split evenly between you and Marcus. I'm amending it. Everything goes to you. Everything, Maya. The rental properties, the investments Dorothy mentioned, a life insurance policy your father took out that I'd forgotten about. It's not a fortune, but it's enough. Enough for you to build your dream and have security. Your brother has proven he can't be trusted with money, so he doesn't get any. I sat there, trying to process. You're disinheriting him. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. He's your son. And you're my daughter. The daughter who stayed, who visited me every day during treatment, who held my hair when I was sick from chemo, who never asked me for anything. Her voice broke. I should have protected you sooner. Your father would be ashamed of me for letting it get this far. Don't say that. It's true. I enabled Marcus. Made excuses for him. And you paid the price. She turned to Dorothy. Draw up the papers. Scenario 2. I want to sign them today. Dorothy nodded to her assistant, who began pulling documents from a briefcase. Mom, this is too fast. You should think about it. Talk to Marcus. I've done nothing but think about it for the past 3 hours. And I'm not talking to your brother until the papers are signed. He's very persuasive, Maya. He always has been. If I see him before this is done, I might waver. And I can't afford to waver. Not anymore. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of legal language and signature pages. Dorothy explained each document patiently, making sure my mother understood exactly what she was signing. The assistant notarized everything, her stamp making decisive thuds against the paper. Finally, it was done. I'll file these first thing Monday morning, Dorothy said, gathering the documents. The property sale will be voided within the week. We'll need to list your house quickly to expedite the payback. I have a realtor I trust. Do it, Mom said. After Dorothy and her assistant left, my mother and I sat in silence. You should go home, she finally said. Get some rest. I want to stay. Marcus will be back. I need to see him alone. Please, Maya. I need to do this my way. Reluctantly, I stood. I kissed her forehead, breathing in the antiseptic smell that had replaced her usual lavender scent. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, baby. More than you know. I was halfway to the parking lot when my phone rang. Vanessa. Maya, please. You have to talk to your mother. Marcus is losing his mind. He knows something's happening. Then he should have thought about that before he stole from her. He was desperate. Those men he owed, they threatened our family. Our children. He had choices, Vanessa. He chose to betray his sister and defraud his dying mother. That's on him. Please. If she cuts him off completely, we'll lose everything. The house, the business. You mean the house my mother mortgaged herself for? The business she funded? Silence. I'm sorry you're in this situation, I said. And I meant it. Vanessa wasn't a bad person. She'd just married one. But I can't help you. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my mother, alone in that hospital room with Marcus. About the look on her face when she'd signed those papers, sad but resolved. About my father, who died when I was 19, and how he'd tried to protect us even from the grave. 47 a.m. My phone rang. Maya? It was Mom, her voice thick with exhaustion. Can you come back? What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm fine. I need you here. Please. I threw on clothes and drove through empty streets back to Riverside Memorial. Mom was alone when I arrived, propped up in bed, staring at the ceiling. What happened? I asked. Marcus came. We talked, and nothing. He tried to convince me to reverse everything. Said I was being manipulated by you, by Dorothy. Said I wasn't thinking clearly because of the medication. My hands clenched. I told him the truth, that I knew exactly what I was doing, that he'd betrayed both of us, and there were consequences for that. She looked at me, her eyes wet. He called me a terrible mother, said I'd always loved you more. Then he left. I sat on the edge of her bed, taking her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For not being strong enough to do this sooner. For letting him hurt you. For her, voice broke. For leaving you to clean up this mess after I'm gone. You're not leaving me with a mess. You're leaving me with a future. My future. The one you and Dad always wanted for me. She pulled me down into a hug, her thin arms surprisingly strong. Build something beautiful, she whispered into my hair. Build it for all of us. For your father, for the people who need it, and for yourself. I will. I promise. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the dim hospital room while the machines beeped their steady rhythm around us. My mother died 11 days later, on a Tuesday morning while I was reading her favorite Mary Oliver poems. She'd been unconscious for 2 days, but I liked to think she could still hear me, that she knew I was there. Marcus came to the funeral. He sat in the back with Vanessa and their kids, and he didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me. During the service, when I spoke about our mother's strength and generosity and how she'd fought for the people she loved, I saw him wipe his eyes. But he left before the reception. The house sold in 3 weeks. A young family with 2 kids bought it, a doctor and a teacher who promised to love it the way we had. I walked through one last time before closing, touching the door frame where Dad had marked our heights every birthday, the kitchen counter where Mom had taught me to make her famous sweet potato pie, the living room where we'd watched movies every Friday night. Goodbye, I'd whispered to the empty rooms. Thank you. The property on Maple Street came back to me 6 weeks after Mom died. Dorothy called with the news that the fraudulent sale had been voided, the condo developers had been repaid, and the title was clear. It's yours now, she said. What are you going to do with it? I stood in front of the building, keys in hand, and smiled through my tears. I'm going to build something beautiful. The Williams Community Kitchen opened 14 months later, on what would have been my mother's 63rd birthday. The space was everything I dreamed: industrial kitchen for training, classroom for classes, dining area for community meals. We'd serve breakfast and lunch to anyone who needed it, no questions asked. We'd teach culinary skills to people who needed a second chance. We'd be a place of nourishment in every sense of the word. Dorothy came to the opening. So did my mother's friends, my old teachers, my father's former co-workers, people who'd known my parents and wanted to see their daughter honor their memory. Above the entrance, I'd hung a wooden sign that read, "In memory of Caroline and James Williams, who believed in feeding bodies and souls." Marcus didn't come. I hadn't expected him to. But Vanessa did, slipping in near the end of the ceremony with their youngest daughter. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "Your mother would be proud." "Thank you. Maya, I'm sorry for everything." I should have stopped him. "You couldn't have. He would have found a way." I paused. "How is he?" "Working. We had to downsize, sell the house in Oak Park, move to a smaller place. He's angry a lot, but he's trying to rebuild." She hesitated. "He misses her." "Your mom?" "He won't say it, but I know." I nodded. I understood. You could betray someone and still love them. You could destroy something and still mourn its loss. "Tell him," I started, then stopped. What was there to say? "Tell him I hope he finds his way." She squeezed my hand and left. That first day, we served 87 meals. We taught our first cooking class to a group of 10 students from the re-entry program at the county jail. We planted the first herbs in the garden boxes outside: basil and thyme and rosemary. Late that night, after everyone had gone, I stood in the middle of the empty kitchen. The stainless steel gleamed under the industrial lights. The prep stations waited for tomorrow's work. Everything smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I thought about my mother, lying in that hospital bed, picking up her phone with trembling hands to make one call. About her strength in those final weeks, how she'd protected me even as she was dying. About my father, who'd loved us enough to build safeguards into his trust, knowing that love sometimes meant setting boundaries. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album. Found the last picture I'd taken of Mom, 2 days before she died. She was barely conscious, but I'd leaned in close and whispered, "We got it back, Mom. The property. We got it back." And she'd smiled. Just a little lift at the corners of her mouth, but it was there. I looked at that smile now, standing in the kitchen that shouldn't exist. The kitchen that was only possible because my mother had found the courage, in her final days, to draw a line. "We did it," I whispered to her picture. "We built something beautiful." Somewhere, I liked to think she was smiling still. Smiling and telling my father, "Look what our girl made. Look what she built from the ashes." I locked up the kitchen and drove home through the Chicago night, past the lake where Dad used to take us fishing, past the neighborhood where I'd grown up, past all the ghosts of my old life. Tomorrow, we'd feed people. Tomorrow, we'd teach people. Tomorrow, we'd keep building. But tonight, I let myself grieve what we'd lost, the family we should have been, the brother I should have had, the mother who should have lived to see this dream come true. And I let myself celebrate what we'd won, the future that almost wasn't, the legacy that almost died, the dream that one dying woman had protected with a single phone call. My mother had given me one final gift, the knowledge that sometimes love meant saying no, that sometimes protecting someone meant disappointing someone else, that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing were the same thing. I would carry that knowledge forward. Into every meal we served, every class we taught, every person we helped rebuild their life. The Williams Community Kitchen would feed people. But more than that, it would stand as a testament to a woman who'd worked 2 jobs and taken out mortgages and sacrificed everything for her children. Who'd loved us enough to enable one and protect the other? Who'd died knowing she'd finally got it right? I miss you, Mom, I thought as I pulled into my apartment parking lot. Every day, I miss you. But I'm okay. I'm building something beautiful. Just like you told me to.